everybody, I'm John Reffett. Welcome back to the shop. I would call this part 4 of our rod build, and hopefully the last part of it. We should be able to go ahead and get our hook keeper on, do our last final wraps on each end of the marbling, and then one more final coat of epoxy, and we'll have this rod done. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so we're back. We'll do the last few things to our rod build and we'll have it completed. We have to add the hook keeper. Now when you do that, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but if you see where the silver is on that, I've ground that down. You can do that with a file, just so you make a nice little ramp for the thread to go up on, because you don't, sometimes it'll stick through the end or it won't cover completely. And also the back side, if you can see that, sometimes the paint gets a little gobbed up on that and it won't sit right on the rod blank, so you want to do that. And our normal, the rod specifications decal, and this customer wants an Ohio State decal on there, where else you can get whatever your favorite ball team is. Can't get the NFL, but you can get the college teams. So we do a little work on the hook keeper, fix up our ends here just a little bit, where we stop the marbling. We'll do some wrapping there, and our last coat of epoxy and this thing will be done. So we'll get set up here where you can see what we're doing and get it done. Okay, so I've added the hook keeper, and all you really got to do on that is just line it up between your reel seat and your first guide. You can, like I say, you can make little adjustments after you've wrapped if you need to. Try to get it on there nice and straight, even with the blank. Now what I did here, started on the end of the marbling to cover up that little bit of faded part, but this is an inlay. So I did about 1/8 inch of red, 5 wraps of the silver, and then another 1/8 inch. Now you can see you'll get a little bit of right here where the thread passes over one another. It's hard to really get that out of there if you can at all. But this is just my starting point, where I'm going to start the red, and then I'll show you how to do the inlay, and then we'll wrap the red the rest of the way up the foot of the hook keeper. So these 2 pieces of tape just holding everything down. Sometimes they're a little bit out of whack, so you might need a piece of tape on either side. So we'll start the red just like we did on our guides. Pass it over once or twice, whichever. I like to kind of let where the thread jumps over to be on the bottom side, this being a casting, so the reel will be up here. Sometimes you can see that just a little bit, so pass your thread over, hold some pressure on it because it will slide. And get you 3 or 4 wraps. Take your burnishing tool and pack everything up against the tape, so it gives you a nice straight starting point. So kind of stick with the same 1/8 inch here. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so I've wrapped about 1/16 of an inch. So we'll get a little bit of the silver thread, and we'll just pull some piece off and cut it. Now slide it up under your running thread right there. Leave yourself plenty to grab onto. You'll see why here in a second. Now I'll just kind of stretch it down to blank. Take a piece of tape, just tape it off so it stays out of your way, because you want that under your red thread. So we're going to wrap that around until we get about 1/8 of an inch. Cut our tag end off here, we don't need. Kind of got that up under there. Remember, just lay your blade against the thread and kind of pull your tag end back. Do not cut straight down onto your blank, because you can gouge it, future breaking point. So we'll wrap it around. And if you see a gap or two as you wrap, just go ahead and take your burnishing tool and snug everything up real good. And keep it good and straight. Just a little bit too much. Okay, it's about 1/8 of an inch. So now we'll take our silver thread, piece of tape off. Now, where this thread passes through, give it a few twists because it will flatten back out, kind of, and move your running thread off to the side and wrap over that. Now you can use an inlay tool to hold your spool of thread if you choose, but I just do it by hand. Keep your running thread from getting up in it, and then wrap it around however many times you choose. I'm going to do this one 5. Try to keep everything matched. So there's 3, 4, and 5. Now you see it's all kind of looks messy, but you can take your finger and just kind of slide that right back. Now once you get it around, you'll see your running thread there. Pass the silver underneath of the running thread. Now you can tape it back off to the side just to keep it out of the way. Now as your running thread comes around, it will pinch that silver thread down, so it's not going to move. So give yourself a wrap or two here. And you can see it's starting up on the guide foot. So I'm going to take another couple of wraps, and then we'll tighten everything up here. Because you can straighten, you'll see sometimes you'll get a little, it'll get a little wavy on you, but you take your burnishing tool and just push it up tight, and it'll straighten everything up for you. And this, the reason I pulled this one right here, it started to jump out just a little bit, so take your tag in and just pull it tight and it'll cinch it up. And just continue your wrap on around. Once you get a few wraps around, then you can get rid of, you can cut this tag in, the silver off. So just get enough to hold it, and we'll get rid of that silver thread. Same deal, just lay it right against it, pull the silver thread back to the knife. Now this piece of tape, we can remove it, we don't need it anymore. A little farther. Just go ahead and keep everything pushed up nice and tight. And once you epoxy, it tends to kind of suck up the epoxy and thicken the thread a little bit. So if you did have a little bit of a gap here and there, it will close up. And there's another way here. You can kind of see right here. Take this tool, the rounded edge or the flat edge, and just run it over it a few times, and it will flatten the thread out and cover up any gaps you might have, any small gaps. So you can see that one right there, and this covers right up. Kind of keep your thread angled towards the handle, towards the opposite way you're wrapping. Let's get that out of the way. And then just wrap it right on up. Now once you get close, don't forget about your pull through thread, because you'll have to pull that thread through. And remember, we're going to pull it back this way. So I like to keep this part on the bottom side of the rod so it's not seen as well, because this is pretty much your focal point here. This is really going to draw everybody's eyes to it. And leave yourself plenty of room, at least a solid 1/8 of an inch. And you see right where the foot starts to bend and comes up, stop about right there. You don't want to go too high on there. It can look nasty. Been there, done that. So once you get right to the end of that foot, get your little slack. Cut your running thread, run it through the loop. Hopefully my hand's out of the way there. Run it through the loop. Now, just like that. Take your pull through thread. Pull it snug. Now remember, there was 1 or 2 ways. We could cut it off here and pull it back. But since I didn't really leave quite enough, I'm going to pull it completely through. And the way we get this out of the way so you can see. So the way we get rid of that, just kind of pull it back where we make a gap. Take our knife and keep your blade sharp. So really all you have to do is just lay it on there and it cuts right out. Same thing here with our silver inlay thread. Just make us a gap. Just be very careful so you don't nick your red thread there. You'll have to redo it. So we'll tighten everything up with a burnishing tool. You can see we've already moved here just a little bit. Some of these hook keepers, the feet are a little odd, but you can move it still once you get it all wrapped. You'll still be able to move it just a little bit. We'll flatten everything out real good. And you can just touch up the ends as you need, just to make sure everything's good and straight. Crazy about that inlay thread, but you can see how it's done here. It's not hard, just a little time consuming, a little bit of practice. You'll be able to do it no problem. So, and then we'll do the same thing on this side. Up here we'll do the same thing. Cap off the end of our specifications decal. So I'll wrap this up and then I'll show you how to put the decals on. Okay, so we got the hook keeper put on. I rewrapped this side again. I really wasn't happy with it, but you kind of see what we did with the inlay there. Now, next step, we're going to add our decal, specifications decal. So it's really simple. You take some Scotch tape, tear off a good sized piece, now where you can have some room to get a hold of and adjust and line everything up just right. We'll tape it over top of it and then peel the backing. This yellow that you see is the backing on it, because it'll be clear, you know, and the CRB will stand out and all that. So tear off a good sized piece. Oops. And kind of center it in there as best you can, and just lay it right down on top of it. So this is kind of what you'll have here. And so then that yellow backing, get where you can see it, and then you can just peel it right off, and as you can see, your decals behind it, and that will be the sticky side. So this is about the alignment that I want. I always put them on the bottom side here, so you can put them on top side however you want to do it. whatever your thing is. But my thread will start here and come out here another, I believe it's 5/16. So I like to wrap the ends of these because sometimes the epoxy can get right up against them. So I'll start with everything. The guide's facing down, the reel seat where the reel goes facing down. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but the decal's a little bit long anyway. So, and this mark, just to let me know how far my thread will come up towards the top. So, I will lay that down to where I can cover just the end of the silver part of it. And then lay it on about where you think it should go here. And your tape will kind of hold it there for you. Now what I do a lot of times, this is an old piece of braided line here. You can use anything. And I'll hold it on the center of the reel seat. There's generally a line where they've put the thing together, and that'll get you really close. And then center on top of the closest guide to it, and then kind of look at your decal, and that'll tell you how straight you are. It looks like we need to move a little bit towards the camera. So, like I say, leave yourself plenty of room here, and then just gently peel it back off and move it where you need to move it. And keep in mind, as you put this decal on, it's kind of going to roll around the blank on each side. So just be real careful how you do it, and don't put it down yet until you're sure you got it where you want it. See, that's about, come back to me just a little bit more. It's kind of like in carpentry, measure twice, cut once. So get everything where you want it the first time. You don't want a crooked decal. So we'll check it again with our string. That, I believe, will do it. So now that you've got everything where you want it, I'll take and start in the center, push the decal down with my finger, and get it started that way. Now take your burnishing tool, use a flat side or round side, doesn't matter, and kind of just rub it on. I like to start in the center and work my way to each side, because if an air bubble gets in it, you can kind of push it out. So I'll just roll that around a little bit. And then just work your way the rest of the way. You can use your finger if you want. And just start from the center, work your way out. And just do that through the whole decal. And when you get to the upper edges or the outer edges here, work those down pretty good so the epoxy does not get up underneath. It can peel them up. There's a way to fix that. If you should put your epoxy on and you'll see that decal start to raise, you can take your razor blade or X-Acto knife and just shave that down ever so slightly. Put another coat of epoxy on, you'll never see it. But that's the reason I like to wrap the ends so that they don't start to raise up as you put your epoxy on. Learned that lesson the hard way. So just keep working right on down. Get that out of there. Now, once you get everything down, just ever so slowly peel your tape off of it. Now see, it's starting to raise that decal there just a little bit, so I didn't get it down all the way. So pull it back out tight. And rub on it to get it right back down. Sometimes they can be a little stubborn. There we go. As you can see, the tape will just peel right off of your decal. Started to raise just a little bit on that corner. But we'll just take our tool and get it back down. A little bit of an air bubble right there, but just continue to go over it until it gets right down tight to it. Now this extra here, if you can see it, I'm going to cut that off. That was just an extra little part of it. It's kind of got a little air bubble up underneath of it. But like I say, we'll wrap up about 7/16 on each end. Get everything nice, you know, the thread nice and even between the letters. And also, you know, now that you get to this point, you know, pull the rod up, eyeball it down through there just to make double sure. Most likely you're going to be where you need to be. So I'll get this little piece cut off and we'll start wrapping the ends. Okay, so I've got the decal applied here. So I want to wrap in and over these edges a little bit. So we'll do the same thing we did back on the hook keeper. We'll start with the red and then come in and do an inlay about an eighth of an inch in and take the red the rest of the way as far as we need to go there. So I did, as usual, piece of tape, start out, get a nice straight edge, wrap it once. Keep in mind this is the bottom of the rod, so we'll keep our crosses where we jump over here towards the bottom. And then wrap it around a couple of times. Push everything back against the tape, get a good start, straight edge started. A couple more wraps, cut the tag off. Piece of silver thread. Tuck it under our running thread and wrap on out to about an eighth of an inch. Okay, so we're right there. So remember, give it a couple twists in the way the thread is twisted as it comes off the spool. You can see it pretty easy. Flatten it back out. Wrap over top of your running thread. We'll do that 5 times. Keeping tension the whole time. You want to get it good and tight. There's 3. Sometimes you'll have to move your running thread just a little bit because it wants to work its way out with your silver. 4. 1 more. Okay, then take the silver, run under your running thread, just like that. And pinch that silver thread down. Self a wrap or two, and then we'll tighten it all up. There's a little bit of a hump here where we did our marbling, so you might have to coax the thread up there a little bit more. Sometimes it works better with your finger. This one's being stubborn. Well, it's not acting right, so let's do it again. Let's keep the silver thread just a little tighter. Cinch it up as we go. One more time. Sometimes your fingernail works better than the tool. Got the wraps now. We'll see if we can't get that good and tight. Sometimes you have to give it a little force. It makes it a little rough where you get that hump. So when you do your marbling, kind of try not to get that big of a hump, or you're going to be fighting it like I am here. And then just cinch everything up till you get it all good and straight. Keep that nice and straight. Let's take that off, get out of our way. A little bit of a gap here. I think we can close that up. So wrap it around a little more, tighten it up again. Cut the silver thread off. So now keep in mind how far you want to go. So we're in 1/8 here. So we'll wrap up till we get about 7/16. Get our pull through thread. Don't forget about that. Remember, always pulling the opposite way you wrap. See where we're at. And about another 1/16 of an inch. Right there. Through the hole. through to snug it up. On this one I left enough, so cut her a little bit, cut her tag end off. We'll pull it through, kind of pull them back at an angle. That keeps that thread from popping back through on you. And then just tighten it up. Straighten everything up real good. Close that gap. Flatten all the threads out real good so any gaps will be covered up. Get rid of this tag end, just pull back, leave yourself a little opening. Close that gap. Now we got a nice clean edge right there. So we'll do the same thing to the other side, and we'll come back and put our Ohio State decal on. And this thing will be built, just a little bit more epoxy, and we'll have it done. Okay, so we've got our Ohio State decal. We're going to do this the same way. Piece of Scotch tape on top of it. Now when you peel these back, there is a back coating and a front. So if you can kind of see that, you got to kind of peel both of them away. Peel that off so you can get to the adhesive part of it there. Now, same deal as before. Try not to get your tape all messed up. Now you want to put this on the top or the side, wherever. I'm going to put this one on the top. So we need to turn him over. He'll be on the same side as the hook keeper. And I'm going to try to center it in between the two wraps. So we'll just kind of with some sticky tape. Then we'll do a little measuring here. See if we can get everything just so. We got about 1 1/16. So we need to go towards the tip of the rod just a little more. You're just eyeballing at this stage. So here we've got 1 1/8. Still need to go just a little bit more. About 1 3/16. Right on the money, 1 3/16 on each side. So now we'll get everything nice and straight. Looks like we can keep the S in state. Use that as our mark. Try to get it about centered. Same thing as before. Piece of line here. I'll line it up with the first guide and then with the center of the reel seat. So reel foot to center reel seat. And I believe we've got that. It looks pretty good there. And same thing as before. I'm going to use the burnishing tool here. Start in the center. Work your way out. Try to keep the air bubbles underneath, out from under it. So just really slow, kind of twist the rod as you go around. These can get a little tricky. Sometimes they'll want to move on you a little bit, but if you slowly do it, you'll be okay. And there's a front backing, as you can see right there, a front piece of this decal. keep you from scratching it up as you get it put down. And then you'll put a coat of epoxy over top of that, and it will seal it. Sometimes I'll do two. Or you can do as many as you choose. So that should about do it. And then easily peel your tape off. And there you have it. So whatever decal you use, you can get fish decals, you know, your favorite football team, fire, skulls, flags, whatever you choose to put on there. And you know, just be careful, line everything up good, double check it, and I think it'll come out right for you. So really all we have to do now, we'll mix up some more epoxy from about the first guide down. Well, I have to redo the first guide, but from here to here, a good coat of epoxy to keep your rod specific decal here, and then whatever else you choose, plus all the wrapping, and we'll have this done. So I'll get all that done and we'll come back and look over the whole thing. Okay, so we'll call that a rod build. As you can see, it's not that hard. It just takes a little practice on some of your wraps, and if you want to get, if you want to get into the marbling, some people don't like it, some do. You can get into all kinds of different wraps. Everything from cross wraps to inlays, with a little bit as you saw me do there. Fade wraps, there's so much of that stuff out there on the internet, so I encourage you to go out there and look at other people and see what they do. I'm no expert by any means, but hopefully some of this helped you. If you decide to do your own, if you want to see something else, something I didn't cover, or maybe I made a mistake on, shoot me a comment, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.